when President Biden issued an executive order pardoning all prior federal offenses of simple marijuana possession, a major moment for a government that still treats marijuana like heroin and LSD as so-called Schedule I drugs. But it had no formal impact in the states where the vast majority of convictions were obtained. So just what does that mean for people across the country and here in Massachusetts, where, as you know, possession of up to an ounce of cannabis has been legal since 2016? And how far will it go toward addressing racial disparities, with black people 4 times more likely to be arrested for marijuana possession in this state? I'm joined by Cheryle Kelley, who was convicted of marijuana possession when she was a teenager, and Shaleen, who co-wrote the 2016 recreational marijuana ballot question, including leading the equity-related sections before serving on the Cannabis Control Commission. She's now chief executive of the cannabis policy think tank, Parabola Center. Shaleen, Cheryle, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you.
Shaleen, can I start with you? What's the significance of President Biden's proclamation?
Well, it's hugely significant because he is the first president to acknowledge that we need to start repairing the harms of the drug war. In terms of the concrete impact, it is somewhat small. It only applies to federal possession charges, which is about 6,500 people. So a small number of people relative, but it will make a big difference in their lives. And hopefully it will lead to more pardons at the state level and pardons for broader marijuana-related offenses as well.
And by the way, he did urge all governors to emulate, to take the same position he did on state convictions. And one candidate for governor, namely Maura Healey here, said she would. But one more thing for you, Shaleen. I know 6,500 on the federal level and plus whatever number in D.C. The vast majority of arrests and convictions for marijuana possession through the years, the overwhelming number are in the states, correct?
That's correct. So the biggest impact would be if Maura Healey was to become governor and do this at the state level, and also if this was expanded at the federal level to apply to people who had sold cannabis, which is also something that is racially disproportionate in the way it's enforced. So those could be potential next steps.
Cheryle, how old were you when you were arrested for marijuana possession?
I was 15 years old.
15 years old. And what impact did that have on your life in the intervening years, that arrest?
It was hard for me to get jobs. You know, they always wanted to do a drug test. Also housing, you know, they always, they want to do a background check. So I was always facing either or sometimes both at the same time.
I know this is speculative, but if a governor of this state 20 years ago, when you were just coming out of your teens, had done what Joe Biden did the other day, but did it on the state level, have you thought in the last week or so about how your life would have been different?
Yes, I mean, you know, I would have never went through what I went through. Things would have been a lot easier as far as getting jobs. I would have never had a record. I would have never had any issue, even with housing.
So
things like that, you know, being a single mom, facing those were very hard on me.
Shaleen, one of the other things, my understanding is one of the things Joe Biden did not do is, even though as a candidate, he promised he'd fight for decriminalization. I don't believe he embraced that in the statement the other day, but he did embrace some examination of this absurdity that I mentioned before, that under federal rules, Schedule I drugs include heroin, LSD, and marijuana. He wants that re-looked at, correct?
That's correct. And I think that he actually approached this in just the right order, because we want to make sure that what happened to Cheryle doesn't happen to anyone else. We stop arresting people, and that people like Cheryle aren't facing these employment, housing, and other barriers that she mentioned. That should be the highest priority. As far as examining descheduling, that is going to take some time. I think that if we descheduled with no coherent plan, that could put up to 90% of the businesses in Massachusetts out of business. It would be taken over by Amazon and Big Tobacco, for example. So I'm glad that that's something that's being approached in a slow, methodical way.
Can you explain that to me? I wasn't aware of that in maybe 30 seconds. Why would it allow the biggest of the big boys to get involved if there was descheduling or whatever you described a minute ago?
Yes, because Amazon and Big Tobacco have endorsed legalization proposals, but they haven't entered the industry yet because it's still federally illegal.
I see.
And so if we were to decriminalize or deschedule marijuana, meaning make it legal at the federal level, they would then enter the industry. So we have to be prepared for that.
And can that be drafted? Can the descheduling, if that were to happen, be drafted in such a way to keep them out of totally controlling the industry like
Absolutely.
Jeff Bezos controls everything else?
That's exactly what we could do and what we should do.
Yeah, and by the way, we should mention 70% of the American people support legalization, just put in context. You know, Cheryle, back to you. You had your record expunged. When did that happen?
That happened last year, and I got that expunged through the Mass Cultivated program that I am grateful to be a current fellow of.
And what effect has the expungement of your record on marijuana possession? What is that? What doors is that open to you?
That opened up a lot of doors for me. It opened up. I was able to work in cultivation, retail. You know, working with hands-on with the cannabis.
And my understanding is you were a beneficiary. Correct me if I'm wrong, Cheryle, of the social equity provision in the law, which, by the way, I believe was authored by Shaleen Title. Is that right? You are a social equity?
Yes. Thank you, Shaleen, for that. Yes, I am a social equity applicant. That opened up a lot of doors in the near future. You know, I can have a license to have retail delivery on my own cultivation site.
That's terrific. You know, Shaleen, back to you for a second. When Charlie Baker was asked about this, what Joe Biden had done the other day, he said he's comfortable, I'm not putting words in his mouth, but the gist of it is, with the current law, I think passed in 2018, which Cheryle benefited from, where an individual can apply for expungement, I guess, of their record. And my understanding, only 20% of the people who have applied have actually had it granted, which is troubling. And I don't know what percentage have not applied to begin with. We asked Maura Healey today what her position was, including what would the process be. Here's part of what she said. She basically repeated what she said to the media last week. As governor, I would move to pardon state convictions for simple marijuana possession, modeled after the steps taken today by President Biden. And while she didn't say explicitly whether the expungement, for lack of a better word, or the pardon would be automatic, obviously having it across the board, as opposed to asking people to apply for it, guarantees that it affects a far broader percentage of people, obviously, right?
Yeah, without a doubt, that would be an improvement over what we have now.
Well, you know, also, there's also a racial equity part of this. I mentioned at the lead of the show, but let me put some numbers up according to the Civil Liberties Union from 2020. Marijuana possession arrest rates in Massachusetts per 100,000 people. Overall population, 4.5 out of 100,000. As you see, white population, 3.7, and black population, roughly 3.5 to 4 times as much. And the point they make, I should be very clear about this, for the same number of offenses, whether you're white, black, Latino, that sort of thing. So obviously the best way to deal with that racial inequity, again, Shaleen, is a blanket pardon or expungement rather than individuals having to figure out how to apply and then possibly getting it granted, correct?
Absolutely correct. And we depended on that study when we created the social equity program. And it's so great to hear, Cheryle, that was helpful for you, even though nothing is going to make up for the harm that was committed. But I think we need to keep doing those studies, not just for possession, but again, for sales as well, because it really does affect people's lives. And we now have corporations that are making billions of dollars for doing exactly the same thing. So no one should be facing punitive consequences now for that.
You know, Cheryle, I should have asked you the same question at the top that I asked Shaleen, is even though there's no formal impact on people with state convictions, with a state record, what did you think of what the president had to say the other day?
I was just, happy about it. It just opens up a lot of doors for, myself and other people like myself.
And it basically, it's a mindset change, doesn't it? I mean, using that bully pulpit, Cheryle, does crack minds open for people.
Yes, because it used to be frowned upon. So, I don't have anyone really like looking over my shoulder or you shouldn't be doing that or, just happy to speak about it now.
Well, I wish you good luck in your business, Cheryle. Before you go,
Thank you.
Shaleen, if you were advising Joe Biden, what's the next step you would take in this effort to get to either decriminalization or outright legalization on the federal level? What should he be doing next?
I would make sure to create a coherent plan to transition for national legalization. I would extend the pardon to people who had sold cannabis. I would call on Congress to send me a bill to legalize, and then I would apologize for my role in the drug war if I was President Biden.
Yeah, he had some impact on that in the 1990s when he was a senator. Shaleen Title, Cheryle Kelley, thank you both. Really appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, too. Have a good day.